Welcome to the More Podcast with Ava and Najee, where we are manifesting original rich bitch experiences. Each week, we bring you travel reviews, wellness advice, and general millennial musings with a level of refinement. What level? It fucking depends. Hi, Ava. How you doing today?
Hey, Najee, I'm great. How are you?
I am living the dream, living the dream. This past weekend was Pride weekend in Atlanta, and the streets were just full of rainbows and love and excitement. The energy was electrifying. So I'm still kind of
Ooh,
riding that high of that energy a little bit. Um, but all is good. How was your weekend? How are you
love,
feeling today?
love that for you. I feel like that's so late in the season. I didn't know that Atlanta Pride was in October.
Yeah, I think it's typically around this time, every year, and it probably closes out the summer and most of the Pride festivities that typically happen throughout the summer. I don't typically partake in the whole parade situation because crowds really kind of freak me out a little bit. But I was down there helping out a friend who owns a store down
Nice.
here in downtown Atlanta, so he had a booth at Piedmont Park. So I was like, because I'm such a good friend, I
Yeah.
will volunteer some of my time. So I just found myself down there and just appreciative of like all the support and stuff. So it was really cute.
Oh, that's so nice. That's super fun. The Minneapolis Pride is always in June. So I don't know why I thought that was like everywhere, but it's super hot in Atlanta in June. So
It is. And it was so cool yesterday, like mid 70s, I think. So I think it was the perfect day just to be out the park, saw lots of families. It was so cute.
love that for you. That's super cute. I had a nice weekend. I feel like mine was really fueled by the full moon in Aries. Like I was just getting shit done. I was actually too productive over the weekend. Like lots of meal prepping, lots of just like list checking off, and it almost didn't feel like a weekend. So, I had to balance it out with a few hours of YouTube binging and this, that, the other thing. But it was a good weekend.
I am so proud of you. Go you. I was literally just thinking, I got nothing done this weekend. I'm gonna have to fix that during the week. But
You
so
got
glad
nothing
that you were able to do
done.
it.
I got too much done. Somehow it evens out.
Somehow it evens out. Somehow. But today we're going to be talking about self-love journeys. I think it's a really,
Yes.
really great connection to a lot of the love that I was feeling downtown this weekend. And I'm really actually excited to kind of talk about this because these journeys are very unique to each and every individual person. And I'm just
Mhm.
really excited to have an open and really honest dialogue about kind of how we've experienced and delivered self love and kind of what those journeys look like for each of us.
Mhm.
So, Ava, I would love if you could kind of start us off and tell us a little bit about what your self love journey has looked like, what some of the hardships, some of the wins, and basically where you're at today. And break it down for us. Teach me something. I'm so into this.
All right. Well, welcome to my roller coaster. Please put on your seatbelts,
Buckle up.
buckle up. Yes, because I agree with you. Self love and just self love journeys are an ongoing evolution. And I think whether or not we're cognizant of it, like we're always on the journey, but I think when we
Hmm.
become aware of it, it gets so much richer and so much more rewarding. And I feel like everyone has a moment where they sort of become aware of a need for really looking at themselves in terms of the way they view themselves, what they think about themselves, and how they want to move forward. Um, for me, my self love journey started very cognizantly for me in 2019. So that was the lovely Saturn return year, life
Mm.
shakeup kind of moment for me. And so my self love journey was sort of again, it's been going on for my entire life, but when I really started to dig into it and really feed it and work on it, was triggered by a relationship breakup. No surprise there. I feel like bigger life events kind of help us tune into where we're at and what we want to work on personally.
Mhm.
For me at the time, I was in a relationship for a year and a half. And basically, it just I thought it was going well. One day it was sort of like, oh, we're not doing this anymore. And it kind of caught me off guard. But what happened, like in the midst, where I was at personally in the midst of that, was I had just enrolled into an 8-week life coaching program.
Mhm.
So I was doing a lot of self work. And the reason why I entered that program is because I felt really frustrated with my life situation in terms of not being connected to a greater purpose. I felt like I was just moving through my life day after day. It was Groundhog's Day every single day, but not in a good way like my birthday.
Mhm.
And it was wake up, scramble to get dressed, no morning routine, drive to the office, work, drive home, eat, go to bed. And like I hated that. And I was really in this place of being like, what else is there though? Why am I doing this? What's the point? And so I entered into this life coaching program, 8-week program, to really uncover and sort of recharter my path in terms of doing something that felt more purposeful. So the fact that this breakup happened like in the midst of this life coaching program is not a coincidence. Like it very much was something that I called in as part of the work I was doing to close a chapter and open a new one. And it just so happened that I was able to see through going through that process of uncoupling that both of us in the relationship needed to work on our level of self love.
Mhm.
And so self love, obviously, it's the love of self, but I think it also is much more around feeling content with your place and your direction in the world. And when I look at love, the opposite of love is fear. The opposite of love is criticism. The opposite of love is judgment. And
Mhm.
so I noticed that I was carrying a lot of criticism, a lot of judgment for myself. And it sounds extreme, but it was honestly, it's like, is this self love or is this self hate? And that was sort of my entry point into examining all aspects of my life, the way I talk to myself, my self-talk. What does it sound like? It was really negative. What are my habits like? Are they supportive or are they borderline restrictive in a way that I'm actually not letting myself enjoy certain things? Like really started digging into all my habits and being like, is this love or is this hate? And it was really shocking to me to sort of come to the conclusion many times that it's like, let's take perfectionism as an example.
Mhm.
Growing up, I kind of wore my perfectionist qualities as like a badge of honor. It's like, no, I'm a perfectionist. And so, like, I'm going to take 3 times longer on this piece of work, or I'm going to be really self critical about this, but the end result is better because my perfectionism drives a better result. Like, I really kind of wore that as something that I thought was really beneficial. Now I see it as the complete opposite. I view my when I'm going into perfectionism mode, now I view that as Ava, get over it. Like stop telling yourself this thing is not good enough yet. Like stop being so hard on yourself. So I just started examining all the qualities and all the habits in my life, and I really started to categorize as lovers as hate. And it's tricky because I think it's such a fine line, dieting or like different sort of nutritional habits is another example of that. Like, I think being healthy, of course, is important. But when it gets to the point where it's like, okay, I don't do dairy, I don't do gluten, I don't do alcohol, I don't do sugar, it's like, then I'm a crabby bitch because like I've
Mhm.
just restricted everything that could be potentially pleasurable. You know what I
Right.
mean? So I just started that practice and really started incorporating. So it's the awareness is the first step, right? And then I started really trying to incorporate tools, energies, frequencies, like rose quartz, for example, just calling in different things that could help support me on the journey of increasing my level of self love.
So when you were on this journey and you were acknowledging a lot of these habits that felt like self-hate, and these are habits you probably have held for a very, very long time. Did you feel any type of tension or some type of resistance towards trying to shift your life in a different direction, even if it was from yourself? Because breaking habits is it's hard. It's a habit for a reason. I'm interested to see if you actually had any of those kind of like those moments of tension or like resistance when trying to change your life.
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I agree with you. It's like, I think resistance is a really healthy indicator of change.
Agreed.
So when you look at resistance or you experience resistance around something, it's like such an almost obvious indicator of like, oh, I need to look at this. Am I
Mhm.
resisting something because I'm, a hair away from making the most impactful change? Am I resisting it because it's the thing that I need the most? Or am I resisting it because it just doesn't align with where I'm going?
Mhm.
And so I think, the theme there, it comes back to discernment. Like, is this love or is this hate? Is this healthy resistance or is this avoidance? And I feel like I can't recall specific
Mhm. Mhm.
resistances, but I am very aware that sometimes I like to self sabotage.
Really?
Yeah.
What does that
Yeah.
look like for you?
For me, I think it can look like procrastination sometimes.
Mhm.
I think it can look like going really hard on something and then kind of like binging,
Mhm.
whether it's workout. um, I mean, it could be anything, not specifically food, but it's like I could be maybe removing wine from my life for a few weeks and feeling really awesome. And then all of a sudden one day I'm like, let's have 4 glasses. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
No. So I think for me, it's almost more self sabotage. So I don't know, maybe the resistance or the tension is like unseen, right? It's like more internal.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then I'll
Mhm.
fall into a pattern of like self sabotage. That's probably more it for me.
Got you. And one other thing is since you've kind of made these changes and had this awareness moment around the time of your Saturn return, do you see that sometimes these things that you're trying to fix that you've trying to kind of put away sometimes rear its head again and you have to put it back in check? For example, maybe perfectionism or something like that.
Yes, of course. I feel like it's just so human because it's like, we talk about this as a journey because there's always ebbs and flows. Like
Mhm.
whether, and it's, I think ebbs and flows in terms of my level of self love, it's like it could be an hourly change, it could be a daily change, a weekly change, a yearly change. If you ask yourself, one of the things I love to do is say, what's my current level of self love out of 1 to 10?
Mm.
Just like a little check in tool. And it's like, okay, right now, I'm feeling like a solid 8. But in 3 more hours from now, if I don't eat my breakfast and I don't, it might be like more like a 4. So I feel like on the micro level and the macro level, like the self love journey is always ebbing and flowing.
Right.
And so that's why I've kind of built up a toolbox of things that I know I can reach to when I'm feeling shittier about myself, or things I can use to continue to feel really good about myself.
I love that. And you see, I'm writing notes here because, again, I told you I'm going to be looking to learn a bunch of stuff. And I think this definitely helps. I think having that self love toolbox that you just spoke of, even with one of those tools, just being a simple question and assigning a number to it. What's my current level of self love? Is it
Mm-hmm.
an eight? Is it a four? Is it a two right now?
Mm-hmm.
And really having that intentionality to kind of figure out exactly where you are emotionally in that journey at that time. And then trying to assign some solutions to get that number up. I mean, I'm
Mm-hmm.
sure you can't be a 10 all day, every day,
No.
but it's helpful to know where you're at, why you're there, and different ways to pick it up. And I love the idea of assigning a specific number to it because it makes it feel more tangible.
Totally. And to take it a step further, it's, the next practice in the self love journey is to not judge the score,
Mm-hmm.
right? So,
Yeah.
okay, I'm being honest about how I'm feeling about myself. If it is a four, judging that score, adding to your negative self talk about it is contradictory to the point.
Yes, very much so. And this discussion made me realize that because I do regular check ins with myself pretty often, almost to the
Hmm.
point where I'm asking myself how I'm feeling like 10 times a day. Like, obviously, not that well if I'm still asking. And and then I'll sit here and say something negative and make a joke about it, but like, it's not funny. I really should be putting in the effort to like raise it up and just really be, again, very intentional about it. Like, sometimes life could be a joke, but like, this is your life. It's actually not a joke. it's
No, it's not a
it's
joke.
serious. Like, it's actually really serious.
Well, let's play a game. Let's check in on ourselves.
Okay.
Okay. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is your current level of self love?
Right now, I would say before we started talking, I was probably at a four. Now I'm probably at a six, a couple minutes into our conversation. So there is an acknowledgement that having these open dialogues and just being open and honest, and also just learning from a friend, is definitely making me feel better about myself because
Mm,
it's allowing me to realize um that there is worth here in what I'm doing. There's worth here in what we're doing. And these conversations actually matter a whole lot. I mean, I had a great weekend, but it was kind of tumultuous too. I did a lot of drinking. And I felt a little bad about myself there. I haven't been to the gym in a while. These are all things that really kind of contributed to that four number.
hmm
And then when I was thinking and reflecting about self love before we hopped on this convo, I was just like, ooh, I haven't really been showing myself that much self love if I haven't been like getting out and exercising and stuff like that. Cause I know that definitely adds to just the overall feeling of, I don't know, goodness about
hmm
myself, about what I'm doing, and lessens that level of anxiety too. So, yeah,
Yeah. And so much of that is like chemical too. You know what I mean?
surprisingly, yes.
So it's not like there's something wrong with you. Like it's literally science that if alcohol is a depressant. Okay, we know that. We still drink. Okay, we know that
Hmm.
exercise is a mood booster, endorphins. Okay, are we going to work out or are we not going to work out? You know what I mean? So it's like, I think too, sometimes we get in our own heads, but it's like it's literally science that our bodies are constantly adjusting to also feeling differently.
Yeah, it almost makes me wish that I took some type of like neurochemistry class to understand more how the brain works. But I'll leave that to professionals and continue to read the books.
I just got a book not last weekend, like 2 days ago. I just ordered a book called You Happier by Dr. Amen, and it's about brain health. So I will circle back once I've read it.
Yes, you
But
happier. Love it.
I'm into it so far. I really like. I think it's interesting.
Yeah, it's a big kind of chemical, electrochemical function thing that's going on in our brains that I wish I can get a hold on. But like I said, I'm going to learn from the professionals. That includes you at this point.
Oh my gosh. And I'm not though. I think, I'm not a professional. It's just something that I really dedicated a lot of energy towards because I was feeling so shit about myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And I think the admission that sometimes you kind of slip back into those habits briefly and you have to check them makes it a little easier to progress on a journey because, again, with any journey, there's going to be ebbs and flows, peaks and valleys. And as long as you get up and keep going, eventually it's going to be okay. And I think where I'm realizing where my slip up is just I've always known this about myself. I lack self discipline, which isn't funny, but like it's so funny. So that's definitely one thing that I've acknowledged that I definitely want to work on throughout the next coming year as well.
Hmm.
And that includes just utilizing, well, discovering and utilizing those self love tools that work best for me. I
Hmm.
feel like we're over 30 now. It's been quite the journey thus far. And we've come a long way, but I think there's still more to be done, especially on my part.
Well, I'm happy that we're here talking about it today. And I'm happy that your self love score has increased 2 points in like 20 minutes. That's pretty
Yeah,
dope.
just like you said, it can change from, minute to minute, moment to moment. You just never know. We encounter and go through so much just as humans on a day-to-day basis that it's totally feasible for your self-love score, your mood, your feelings to change throughout the day. But I'm
Hmm.
glad it's increasing as well. This is super helpful.
So, do you want to talk about more tools? Or I would love to also hear about your journey and your experience so far.
All right, well let's go into my story.
Tell me, babes.
Let's see. So self-love has always been a really, really kind of interesting topic for me. Before I even acknowledged it as self-love, I knew that it was I just had a feeling that it was something like, and I can even go all the way back to like high school, where we're all kind of in that like awkward phase where we have to take all these classes and be with all these people for a set amount of time throughout the day, and everyone is going through puberty and there's hormones and all these things, and I just remember feeling all over the place. I didn't have a lot of self-esteem. Um, and I knew that I wanted a change. I wanted a change in how I viewed myself. I wanted a change in the experiences I was having, and I wanted a fresh start. I think that's a lot of the reasons why people decide to go to the college they went to. Like, I went to a out of state college because I wanted a fresh start. I wanted something new. I wanted something different. And that's exactly what I got. And I think that is one of the starting points to really realizing that direct, my actions have an influence on the way my life can change. And also, the way my life is structured can have a direct impact on the way I view myself, my productivity, and my overall self love journey.
Hmm.
Because I remember when I got into college, I had this group of friends. They were super confident and they were very stylish and they were very fearful. And it was something that I wasn't used to feeling about myself, but just being around those types of people made me feel like I was confident, made me feel like I was fearless, made me feel like I was stylish, made me feel like I was all these things I never really felt. And I think that's where I really found what true confidence looked like. So I would say during that time, I was probably the most confident I've ever been. And after that time, I was able to kind of like hone it a little bit. And I always had this like really, really kind of intense but quiet fire inside of me, knowing that I could absolutely do anything I put my mind to if I really just focus and structure my life around kind of creating that goal and building upon it. So it was really, really interesting. I love that. Um, since then, we get older, we get new responsibilities. We go through Saturn returns,
Mm-hmm.
we go through breakups. I got fired. So all those different experiences have definitely kind of had an effect on the way I view myself, the way I love myself, and some of the things that I tell myself on a day to day basis. And it also just kind of impacts where I want to go overall. But just as far as realizing that self love piece, I think it really just goes back to self discipline and really kind of discovering and reaching into these toolboxes with all these different tools to have a higher self love score
Mm-hmm.
and be more consistent with it.
Yeah.
Like, I think if it's two things I really need to work on when it comes to self love, is probably self discipline and being very intentional about it and consistency. Because I have very high highs with self love, but also very low lows sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I get
Um,
that for sure.
so it's just a work in progress to try to overcome that. But I really do think kind of just making intentional decisions to structure my life around things that make me just feel good, and being consistent with it, very consistent with it, will go a long way. Like I said, I haven't been to the gym in a while. My diet's been shit. Like, I got to pick it up.
Awareness is the first step. Congratulations.
Thanks.
It's so
Thanks.
normal though. Like that is such a normal human experience. And I think it's so wild how we all individually can feel so bad about that. And so sometimes I think about, well, where does that come from? You know?
Yeah.
And there's just so much societal bullshit conditioning
Mm-hmm.
around all of that. And I feel like we've consumed it in the womb, we've consumed it after birth. Like even if you don't watch TV or the news, you know what I mean? It's like so much of these ideals or I one of my favorite examples is like waking up early, the concept of waking up early because
Mm-hmm.
society says that successful people wake up early. Okay, not everyone is a fucking morning person.
Right.
I'm not a morning person. I tried it for a long time. I didn't feel any better. I felt worse. You know what I mean? So like there are
Right.
just so many things that it's like we detract from our own self-love based off of what we think we should be or how our life should look because of what we've been told. And so I think to your point of, moving through life and having different phases and having different experiences, we're constantly filtering through all of these inputs, whether it's something that directly happens to you, like in that work environment where you were fired from a
Mm-hmm.
job, or whether it's something that you're indirectly consuming ideas, ideals, shoulds. There's just always so many things for us to be filtering out when it comes to it's the boundaries, right? It's protecting our own self-concept, our own self-love, and our own well-being.
Mm-hmm.
And it's hard. That's why it's a journey, because there's always another input. There's always something else that's going to be like, well, you're not successful unless you go to the gym 6 times a week. Fuck that.
Do you think one of the biggest threats to self love is that societal conditioning?
Probably. I think it's just we all need to be so much, we need to hold our boundaries, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's up to you individually, it's up to me to protect my self love. It's up to you to protect your self love. And you get to decide who impacts that, what detracts from that. I get to decide, you know what I mean? And so I
Mm-hmm.
just feel like society, like there's just so many external inputs that I do feel like that's a huge piece. It's like filtering. What's mine? What's not mine? What do I believe to be true? What do I know to be true? What's not true?
Hmm.
And I think it's a brain thing too, you know, negative thoughts, self talk. You are not your brain. You're not your mind in that way.
Yep. There goes that science again.
Right? I know. I'm like reading the brain book. I'm like, come on with it. But I think there's just a lot of inputs that we have to filter through.
So, how has your self love journey kind of impacted the work you do now and the way you go about living your life?
Ooh, heavy questions today.
I love questions.
I know you do. And I always get squirmy. I'm like, oh my God. I think that, I kind of breezed over it in my very Aquarian way in this discussion, but that breakup was very hurtful. It was very painful for me, but it was the closure of one door and it literally opened the chapter that I'm in right now
Hmm.
because I was able to see and I was able to connect the dots between what I do as a social media professional and the importance of self love. So, for example, I help people build personal brands on social media so they can get seen and grow in their purpose.
Hmm.
Okay,
Hmm.
what's one of the biggest blockers to that? People have fear to show up on social media around what other people will think, the judgment, the criticism. How can you combat that? It comes back to self love. So I think that's been one of the biggest things is the way that I approach my social media practice now. And I really infuse the energetics of self love with the strategy and tactics of marketing. I really believe that they're not separate. And personally, I think it's everything, but starting my own business was another moment for me where I lost that confidence that you spoke to. Like when you have that
Hmm.
confidence in a certain situation and then you
Hmm.
change your situation, I was like, well, who the hell am I? Am I even any good at this? And again, I had to go back to my self love. I had felt like, damn, I had just worked through all of that. I
Hmm.
had just
Hmm.
worked through all of that. And now we're back at maybe not square zero, but we're back at like square one, which is so frustrating.
Oh my gosh, yes.
So I feel like now I feel pretty good because I have restructured my business in a lifestyle that feels supportive to me. I'm not going through those motions of just the Groundhog Day effect where every day is the same and every day is I felt like pointless, I feel like
Right.
I've rebuilt my life in a way that feels like I am moving continually towards my purpose. Me traveling, like that, it's all connected, and it's honoring my true self. And when I do that, I know that's an act of self-love.
I love that. That's perfect. I had a realization during this conversation that when you said the opposite of love is fear, it's criticism, it's judgment, it's all these things, which I 1,000% agree with. I mean, that stuff is the opposite of love. And I feel like I've gotten to a point where I do such a great job of showing love outwardly to other people and other situations to the point where I don't feel like I used to be so judgmental. I don't feel like I'm that person anymore. Like, I love everyone for who they are, what their situation is, even if it doesn't like work for me, I love it for you kind of thing. And I've worked on being less critical, when it comes to certain things and people as well, because that's not how I want to show up in the world. Like I really just want to show up in the world at this like big, kind bubble of love, which I'm still working on, obviously. But to make all that progress after such a long period of time makes me happy that this is how I kind of show up in the world when it comes to connecting with people,
Hmm.
right? So it feels like, okay, well, if I can do this, if I can be non judgmental, if I can be non critical, and if I can be soft with a whole bunch of other people, why can't I do it with myself? So I think
Hmm.
that's rolls into that self discipline and consistency piece, realizing, hey, you've done all this work to show up in the world to be kind and loving, non judgmental, accepting, inclusive of all these different people and all these different situations and all these different ways of life. You can do some of that for yourself too. It's okay.
Yeah.
Like, push some of that stuff on the inside and see how your life will change.
Hmm.
And I feel like it sounds very cliche, this whole conversation. I show love to everybody, but I don't do it to myself. But there's so many people out there that do that. I just encourage everyone like ourselves who has done the work to show up kind, soft, supporting, just as society in general. It's okay and it's actually favorable if you do it to yourself as well. Be kind, be gentle, be loving. And I think that is a really, really great way to show that self love, to be honest. I can't believe I just had this realization. And I feel like I've seen this trope on TV all the time. And I'm like, ugh. I'm always just like, ugh. But I'm just like, actually, art imitating life. Wow.
I love this for you. And I think it's that self love is not selfish, you know?
Right. Yeah,
It's like the putting on your own oxygen mask first, which they tell you to do in the airplane,
they do.
but we don't really do that in real life.
We don't, which is so interesting. Like, there's a lot of boundaries that I do place around me to keep my peace, but keeping my peace isn't always the act of self-love that I need. Like I keep my environment peaceful, but my mind is a wreck.
Mm.
So is it peaceful just because my surroundings are peaceful but my mind's a wreck? No, there's more work to be done.
Hmm.
I'd be interested to see how many other people kind of like have these roadblocks when it comes to realizing what that love of self looks like for them, because your mind being in disarray is actually an act of self hate. And I know sometimes you can't, or it feels like you can't control it, but there are tools that you could use and draw from to increase that mental health and just do better. Now, that's
Hmm.
an act of self love, definitely.
Hell yeah. That's
Wow.
huge.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to take that, writing that down.
I love affirmations, writing I am affirmations.
Affirmations are important.
I also love like tracking sometimes that just self talk.
Mm-hmm.
And if you realize the things that you're telling yourself, like they're really mean sometimes.
Yeah.
And then rewriting it the opposite way. Like I love doing that. I think I learned that from Louise Hay in that book I always talk about. You can heal your life.
Right. Affirmations and recording self talk. Are those two additional tools that you typically pull from?
Yeah, here I'm giving you more tools. Yes,
Just
affirmations,
dropping gems.
self talk, self care, but like fundamental self care. So,
Mm-hmm.
drinking water, eating food, going outside, connecting with community,
Yeah.
sleep. And then I love my rose quartz. I have a huge chunk of it right here, but like physical tools sometimes too. So rose quartz is a love stone.
A love stone.
I bought like a bunch of pink colored clothes. Like I just started like wearing it, surrounding myself with rose quartz for a long time. And I like to have things on hand too, because you can pull it out, when you want it. I brought it to the table for this conversation today. Obviously, you don't need to have a chunk this big, but
What does the energy from that rose quartz feel like? Does it have like an energy?
it feels like it feels soft. Like it feels like you mentioned, the kind of descriptors of how you treat other people. It feels soft, it feels supportive, it feels kind.
And you just saying those words really just made me feel, it just made my heart feel warm,
Good.
right? Oh, kind, gentle, supportive. Be that to everyone, but be that to yourself too.
Yeah.
Like, if I don't take anything from this conversation, it's definitely going to be that because it's just so important for me to be these things to other people. And now it's even more important to be these things to myself.
Yeah.
Like we said, self love is definitely a journey that ebbs and flows, but ideally, we want to take the self discipline and consistency to show ourselves that love and be kind to ourselves on a day to day basis. It's not something that's just like a weekly thing or a monthly thing, or it's not really a buzzword. It really is kind of a
Mm-hmm.
lifestyle. It's
Totally.
honestly a lifestyle. So I I think just from this conversation, I think the best thing to do really would be to discover what those self love tools look like
Mm-hmm.
because they're going to look different for everyone. For
Yep.
you, it's rose quartz, pink clothes, but also just really funneling a lot of the stuff that you practice and preach into your day to day life and creating that lifestyle around it.
Mm-hmm.
And for others, it might look different. I think I'm definitely going to be doing some work this week as to kind of figuring out a couple of tools that will definitely work for me, whether it
Yeah.
be having signs or pictures everywhere, whether it be that physical
Mm-hmm.
kind of embodiment that makes me feel that makes me feel love, that
Yeah.
embodies love, something like that. I don't know. I'm not really sure what that looks like. I will be reporting back though. I'll definitely be reporting back with what those self-love tools look like because honestly, when it comes to this journey, I'm going to say again, I want it to be consistent. I know we all
Yes.
go through things that can kind of shake and rattle, our world a little bit. But ideally, if we have those tools in place, it'd be easier to get back on track. And
Mm.
it definitely sounds like you've got those tools and you're kind of able to bounce back and check some of those moments where maybe the self love isn't as high. And I think that's a really, really great place to be.
Mm-hmm. Self-love is a lifestyle. I love that.
Absolutely. Self love is a lifestyle. That's the
That's
quote
the
we're
mic
taking.
drop.
That's it. Oh, gosh. All right. So, do we have anything else that we want to talk about in regards to self love?
I think we've covered it. Self-love score, start there.
Hmm.
What's that number?
What is it?
Find a tool that feels supportive to you. Acknowledge that self-love is not selfish and get started on that lifestyle.
Yeah. Be consistent with it.
Be consistent with it.
Make it a priority. You'll be surprised how much your life changed and your view of self also changes. And
Mm-hmm.
surprisingly, relationships. So, we'll see. Awesome sauce. Well, why don't we move into this week's session of Love It or Leave It?
Love it or leave it. Boop,
Yay.
boop, boop,
Ava, tell me what you are loving and what you're leaving this week.
boop. Okay. What am I loving? I baked a cake over the weekend. Like I said, I was too productive. And this cake was delicious. It was a chocolate cake with chocolate peanut butter buttercream frosting.
That sounds delicious.
It is. It is.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm just proud of myself because I made fucking homemade buttercream frosting.
And you know, buttercream frosting is one of my favorites.
Ah, well, get over here and have a slice.
Listen, I will catch a flight. That way I can hit it. I can hit that buttercream cake, the cake with the buttercream frosting,
Yep.
and then I can help hit up BLG afterward.
Yes, barley grass is calling your name.
Seriously, but no, that's awesome. Congrats on the cake.
Thanks. It's so delicious. I love it. And it's like a creative moment for me.
Definitely creative.
You
Yep.
know, like not looking at screens, just baking a cake. It turns out delicious. You can enjoy it afterwards. And I love that for me. The only problem is like, when you don't have a lot of people around to share it with, you're like, I'm staring at 3/4 of a cake. That's the downside.
Yeah, but honestly, baking a cake is the kind of self-love I'm here and subscribe to. So I love that for you.
There you go.
And why don't you just take it to some of your clients if you can? I feel like they
Right?
might appreciate that.
I know. My mom's coming over to have a slice after work today. So I'm
Ah, I
working
love
on
it. Love it, love it, love it.
it.
Yeah, we're definitely loving that. Keeping that, absolutely.
Keeping that. Another love it. I woke up to an email notice that I made gold status for next year on Delta.
Yay!
Yay! She's
Listen,
back
she has two love it's this week. Like, what? We're
in the
killing it.
spirit of the
We're
topic.
killing it. I love it.
So those are my love it's for sure. This is going to sound really obnoxious, but I don't have a leave it coming to mind.
Good. That's definitely not a bad thing.
Okay. All right. What are you loving leaving this week?
So I also actually have two love it's.
Okay.
We're back, baby.
Hey.
Retrograde couldn't hold us down.
Hell no. It tried really hard.
So I absolutely loving the Atlanta Pride Parade that happened this weekend. Again, I don't really do crowds, but again, the energy was electrifying. The love and support was absolutely beautiful. And sometimes just good to get out every now and then. So that was great. I'm also loving that we haven't had any tech issues this week.
Oh,
So I'm
facts.
absolutely obsessed with that. Like, you have no fucking clue. Like, I kid you not, like, before we start recording, the power went out like twice in the house. And I think
Today?
yes. And I think it's due to because someone was doing some type of like work outside. Maybe they were hitting a power line. So I texted my friend. I was like, oh, I might need to come over there to record again. But then I was just like, you know what? No, I have faith that this is going to work out. And look at God, it's working out.
Here
Loving
we
that.
are. Here we
Loving that.
are.
Mm-mm-mm-mm-mm.
Nothing can keep the more pod down.
Loving it. That was positive self talk. That
Yes.
happened. My gosh. So two things that I am literally obsessed with. Both of those things that I named earlier.
Same.
Ugh. Self love score just went up to an 8. And we're definitely leaving negative self-talk, John. I know
Hmm.
we spoke about it earlier today, and I've kind of found myself in a little bit of a valley around that. But I'm definitely determined to kind of like pick it back up. They said retrograde thought that they can hold us down, but they can't. Um,
Mm-mm.
and just having this smooth session, beautiful day, amazing Pride weekend, like I'm feeling the love. So leaving the negative self-talk, loving all the love, loving no tech issues. And we're just gonna keep this gravy train rolling. I'm gonna be super productive this week. Watch.
I'm excited. I'm excited for all of that. Self love is a lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. 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 Definitely.
If you enjoyed this week's episode, please rate and review us wherever you listen to podcasts and tune in every Wednesday to hear the things that make us more us and discover a thing or two to make you more you. Bye.
Bye.